Hello everyone and welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're doing good and well. So following on from my top 24 albums of the year video, I'm now talking about my honourable mentions, the ones that didn't quite make the cut. There are 6 albums here that, as I do a running list of albums throughout the year on a spreadsheet, these albums are basically my numbers 30 down to 25, and I'll be talking about them as such. Each album, there'll be a number on the screen saying which number effectively this is on my year-end list, but I'm also calling them my honourable mentions because they didn't quite make that top 24 list video. I want to stress as well that these albums I think are all still really great. This was a really strong year for metal, and I've seen lots of these on your lists higher up than I've put them on mine, and I think that's perfectly understandable. In fact, on another day, a couple of these albums would easily crack my top 20 depending on how I'm feeling, because these lists are always fluid, they're always subjective, and we can change our mind a bit from time to time, just given the standards. I think sometimes, where you think, actually, on another day I prefer this album to that album, and it's really difficult. I would say generally the albums right at the top of my list don't usually change, nor do the ones more near the bottom of my total number of albums listened to in the year. The ones in the middle, though, shift around very easily, and so I want to stress, even though these are honourable mentions, they're still great albums, and I will talk about them as such. Now, starting therefore with my first honourable mention and what is basically my number 30. In fact, I'll put the numbers on the screen. This is essentially my number 30. This is Paul Bearer with their 5th studio album, Mind Burns Alive. Still 6 great songs on here. This is still great Paul Bearer stuff. They've manoeuvred into a slightly different kind of direction, less of those really heavy sounds, those really big kind of, big, really flat sounding chords that you get from previous albums. But I still really enjoy this and what Paul Bearer has to offer. It's just that this wasn't a top 10 album. I mean, all 4 of their other albums have made, I think, the top 10s of my lists for those years that those albums were released. But this is still a great album with tracks like Endless Place and Signals on. It doesn't disappoint. It's just not quite as incredible as the rest of their discography. So it comes in here basically at number 30. Next up at number 29, we've got Phaser Days, the project of Amelia Murray, who you might know for songs like Lucky Girl that went viral back in 2017. And this album, this follow-up album from her, I think is still very good. It's songs that are pretty simple, that melt like butter in your mouth. They're very easy to listen to. I personally love the last 2 acoustic-based tracks on this album, Sleeper and City Glitter. They are gorgeous songs that wouldn't be out of place, I feel like, on one of those kind of 60s singer-songwriter albums, or one of those kind of an albums. And basically, if she did an album full of acoustic tracks, you're talking album of the year material, because I think these last 2 songs are really, really quite special. Give me an album full of these acoustic tracks, and Amelia Murray's Phaser Days could well have an album of the year. But as it is, this one comes in at number 29. Next up at number 28, we have Nocturna and Of Sorcery and Darkness. This is just a really fun symphonic power metal album, and I wasn't surprised to see Federico Mondelli's name in the band here, and he is of the band of my t-shirt, Frozen Crown. And in fact, I would say that Nocturna of Sorcery and Darkness sounds a bit like Frozen Crown and Tie Your Ear in Nightwish had a child, and they called it Nocturna. And this band are unique in the way that they have 2 female vocalists instead of just one, who harmonise and sometimes go back and forth between each other, and it just sounds great. And it's that formula that I think is really working here, and I hope their next album is even better than this one, which I think is still a really, really good album. Songs like Creatures of Darkness, Seven Sins and Strangers in particular, is just really infectious and great to listen to. So that's why Nocturna of Sorcery and Darkness is my next honourable mention, and essentially my number 28. Now next up at number 27, we have Alceste with their most recent album, Les Chants de l'Aurore. And this is going to be a test of my French, I guess, as well. I really love this album almost as much as I love lots of their other albums. They make very effective use of the combination of shoegaze and atmospheric black metal here, and do so extremely effectively. 6 beautiful songs, but the favourites that stand out for me, I think, on this one would be Flamme Jumelle and L'Enfant de la Lune, and also the opening track, I think, Comme Arabie is extremely good too. So just another strong album from this band, who don't usually disappoint, and they certainly didn't disappoint this year with this particular release, their 7th studio album, Les Chants de l'Aurore. Next up at 26, now this is one of those albums I said in my introduction could easily on another day basically be in my top 20. And I've seen this actually on some of your end of year lists as well. This is Lucifer with Lucifer 5. And, you know, for a January release, I think it's always impressive if it makes a list, because you've had the rest of the year with 11 months worth of other fantastic albums to break in. And it can almost be easy to forget an album that comes out early in January like this one did. But this is of a particular standard, I think, where, you know, it's drawing from the 70s classic rock playbook. If you don't know Lucifer, they have that sound, and they have a female vocalist whose vintage style vocals fit the vintage style music almost. Well, I think it sounds pretty perfect to me. And the songs on this album are also very, very solid. It's a collection of, I think they do a good variety within their songs, whilst obviously honing in on that classic 70s rock sound. And it's a great album. I mean, let me just read out some of my favourite tracks here from this one. You've got Fallen Angel, A Coffin Has No Silver Lining, The Dead Don't Speak. Some great riffage within those songs as well. There's also some great guitar work here as well, so worth mentioning that too. That is why Lucifer 5, fantastic album to be quite frank. As I say, on another day, this one could maybe be in my top 20. Who knows, maybe even my top 10 perhaps. This is actually a great record. Now, last but by no means least, an album which I think many of you were shocked that this didn't appear in my top 24 albums of the year, particularly with me being a prog fan. Now, here's what happened with this. This is Blood Incantation and Absolute Elsewhere coming in as my final honourable mention, and what would have been my number 25 if I'd have done the top 25 albums of the year list. But why isn't this higher on my list? Well, there's really one pretty simple reason for that, and it was just there was so much hype around this album, and sometimes, you know, it's nobody's fault, but it's just sometimes when you almost feel like, whether or not you are, but you feel a bit almost force-fed with an album, that it can put you slightly off wanting to include it on your year-end list. Even though I do really love this album, I think it's a great album, I just thought to myself, it's going to be on so many other year-end lists, I don't need to really include it on mine because I want to give other bands the spotlight. And I think so far I've been proven right in that I think 75% of the other year-end lists I've seen have included Blood Incantation's Absolute Elsewhere. So I didn't include it on mine for that reason. But don't take it away from this album. It's absolutely incredible, combining a sort of progressive death metal sound with, you know, 70s Pink Floyd. And it just sounds immense, to be honest. It really does. It's a mastercraft. And I really like the first half, I think, maybe slightly more than the second half, the Stargate tracks. Also, maybe that's because it reminds me of Stargate SG-1, which is one of my all-time favourite sci-fi TV series. So anyway, that's my honourable mentions. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks very much, everybody, because I've seen a bit of growth in the channel recently, and there's been a lot of support for my year-end videos, which I thoroughly appreciate. Whether I've been talking about music or films, you guys have been on board, supporting the channel, commenting and liking. It goes a long way in keeping me doing this. I know I had a hiatus quite recently, so to come back and get this level of support is fantastic. It's really encouraging, and it makes me want to continue sharing. Particularly, I love year-end videos. There's just something about them where everyone comes together, shares their favourite albums and lists, and it's just great. So thanks very much, everybody. Until the next video, which should be my Christmas sign-off video as planned. Bye for now.